Hello and welcome to the Oklahoma Venture Forum podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Golding. I'm joined today by Justin Wilson, the Managing Director and President of Plains Venture Partners, also an I2E company.
Plains Ventures.
Plains Venture.
Plains Venture Partners is actually one of our funds.
Right.
It's one of our fund series that focuses on the Series A, or that term is kind of losing its meaning in the venture world today. But mature companies,
Right.
companies that you might define as having established product market fit and are looking to achieve market penetrance or kind of market capture or scale.
So not early stage, not seed, not angel, not pre-MVP, not even MVP stage, right?
Yeah, that fund is focused upon companies at that stage,
Right.
And Plains Ventures manages a series of funds that are focused specifically on the seed stage. And I would say that really, and we'll get into kind of our structure and where we come from and how we're made up. That's in a lot of ways that's our bailiwick, right? Like is that seed stage, that helping that finding companies at the point where they have a really, really good idea. They may or may not have the product fully developed. They may or may not have any primary customers. And we dig in, we find that nugget of value creation, that spark that could become something real. And that's really for most of our activity, that's when we get in.
An extremely important part of the timing process, right? Maybe something that has huge potential could wither and die at this space if they don't find the right partners, the right relationships, it's not just capital, it's a lot of things that come along with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have to tell anybody that's likely to be listening to this podcast that fundraising is hard, and it is just one tiny little piece of what it takes to build a successful business. It's hard, and I always say that there's infinite ways that a company can die and only a few ways in which they succeed. And we are willing to do so much more than just solve that financial part of it. Obviously, can't do much without that, and that's what we're here for. But we believe that and I'd say it's fundamental to why Plains exists at all. Was years and years and years ago, some people believed that this concept that venture that innovation only exists on the coast is preposterous.
Silly idea.
It's preposterous on its face, right? And they said, okay, well, for it to work here, what are the things that we need to be willing to do? Right. What are the things that we need to do that will serve the specific needs of the broad base of entrepreneurship and innovation in between the coasts? So be that in Oklahoma and in places like Oklahoma, right? And that is to not, we don't need this kind of follow me, idea of well-polished perfection. If you have an idea or a concept or a product that has a clear value creation mechanism, and maybe you haven't, maybe you're a technical founder or a scientist or an inventor or something to that effect, and you've never thought about it. Yeah, or a farmer, right?
It can come off the farm or the cattle ranch or the oil field.
The name Plains is intentional, right? Like it is meant to kind of effectuate this. We are in so many ways a blue-collar venture capital fund. We're here to do work, not be the sexy glitz and glamour that so many get caught up in venture capital today.
Right.
We're here to understand what it is that how you're gonna create value for your customers and figure out what it is that we need to do to help you get there.
So the fund was stood up in 2019.
Well, so yes and no, right?
Okay.
Like, so Plains is just a new name for something that I2E, the company that we were born out of, has been doing for 20 years. Right. So I2E was established 25 years ago, nearly, or so thereabouts.
You're pretty close, I think.
And it was just this idea that we need the state. And the people within the state recognized that there needed to be a way to support and offer resources to would-be innovators and entrepreneurs here in the state. And so they started, purely as a service, and they, did that at an extraordinary level, and they did extraordinary things for the people of the state for a long time. And at one point, they said, well, what would really help these founders? money, and so through a really innovative partnership with the state early on that I honestly can't, looking back, it was revolutionary.
Right.
But through that, they said, all right, look, we're going to test that this will work, and we'll demonstrate that if we invest in these companies and understand our risk tolerances and understand what it is, the kind of nose to the grindstone hard work that needs to be done, we can prove that this is not only possible, but it can be done repeatedly and successfully right here.
Right.
And so it was born out of that. Ultimately, as that matured and grew, and as that kind of idea was born into fruition, what was needed was a way to kind of really put the emphasis on that. What has grown up within that was a professional fund management firm.
Right.
And so we have that legacy that was born of managing money in partnership with the state. That's still a vital part of what we do, and something that we're very, very proud of. But we're also and largely a for-profit private fund manager with private LPs, like you might see in any other venture capital environment in the world.
You're recently on a venture capital panel for Oklahoma Venture Forum with two other venture capitalists who all three of you had very different kind of formats and formulas for how you work, right? Which is one of the great things about venture capital and investing and developing new businesses is there's a bunch of different ways you can do it well, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
in that on that forum, you were getting questions and answers from the crowd. Curious, I want to ask you your kind of favorite question. Someone asked you something you really thought this was a great question, and if there were any questions that surprised you, good or bad, from the OVF Venture Forum panel that we had recently.
Well, so it's funny you asked that, and I'm probably going to give you a creative non-answer here, but so forgive me if this is rambling and goes nowhere. But part of what makes me an ideal fit for this job, and part of what makes me, maybe a bad person to answer this question is I don't have to pretend to be interested in something, right? Like all of it is interesting to me, and in fact, the thing that interests me the most is when someone is interested in something.
Okay.
So, like, if what I loved about that panel was the enthusiasm at which the audience members were genuinely wanting to understand. Okay, how does this work, and what are these different perspectives? There was on that panel there was a fund of funds partner. Right. There was us, a traditional GP, and then there was a corporate VC. Those are very distinct and unique perspectives on this world, and so it was so interesting. I loved how like some of the people in the audience like genuinely just wanted to know from the perspective of an entrepreneur. Like how should they tackle this very kind of difficult and sometimes overly opaque process,
and sometimes intimidating process.
Yeah, very intimidating. Yeah, exactly. Right. And what are some of the ways that I love the one that it was a question something to the effect of what do you wish that founders did differently or something, right? And so that's venture capitalists can very rightfully get real self-important a lot, and they love to prescribe what everyone else should be doing well. And so I'm always very hesitant. But I would urge to some extent the ability of a founder to sell their idea is what is every company that becomes a success has a failure moment, and they typically succeed not based upon some sound fundamental at the time. They succeed based upon a founder's ability to thoroughly communicate a vision. Mm-hmm. And so I echoed. I believe I said something along those lines in the panel, and I talked about how it is so utterly important that the founder be able to show alignment in the different components of their vision and stuff. And so that that's just something I would urge all founders to consider is at some point you're a salesman and sell.
At many points you're
sell.
a salesman. Right?
Sell.
Everyone is in sales whether they think they are or not, right? Yeah. Especially if you're a founder or someone who's trying to do something on their own, if you will, right? To stand up their own business, startup, et cetera, or just be the boss, right? Mm-hmm. Be the ultimate person in charge. Mm-hmm. Something else interesting about yourself and the other two venture capitalists that were on that panel is that none of you had what most people would think is probably a prototypical education background. none of you had a straight business degree as your bachelor's degree, started doing different things, and then migrated your way to this part of business. So from your perspective, going back to getting that bachelor's degree, what were you thinking? What was your plan for the future? And then how did, as life often does, did you get taken down a path and end up where you are now?
So again, I'm uproariously long-winded, and you ask,
which is great for podcasts.
Yeah,
no, it was perfect for podcasts.
Yeah, you ask how to get there, and I'm going to tell you how the road is made. And so, my apologies up front, and you can stop me if I get off course. But to understand that, you have to understand a little bit about where I come from. So I grew up in a tiny little town in southeastern Oklahoma. I am in Okie. I'm proud of it.
Me too.
But I grew up in extreme poverty, right? And so my father was a rodeo cowboy. He was this larger than life, like kind of Renaissance man, an artist and a poet and an outlaw of all stripes. And he unfortunately passed away when I was 3. And then my mother struggled with substance and things throughout my life. And so for me, education itself was the goal, right? It was my way out. The only things that I were particularly good at, certainly wasn't good at sports, although I love them. The only things I were particularly good at was school and connecting with people. I was a good math student, but it wasn't spectacular. I was just, typically good at those things. And so I moved out on my own when I was 14. And for me, the goal in life at all, it wasn't that I was choosing not to pursue a path in venture capital. Right. I wasn't like opting against these things. I didn't even know it existed. I probably didn't know what a venture capitalist was until I was 30. I mean, or certainly in my 20s.
I definitely was very much an adult before I figured out what these things were and what they meant and how they kind of related to the real world.
So for me, it was get a scholarship that would allow me to go to Oklahoma State or Oklahoma. I managed to pull that off. Oklahoma State had a better basketball team. I liked the color orange. People in Stillwater were real nice to me. That's where I went.
That works.
And then once I got there, it was, oh my goodness, what now? And the only types of success I'd ever heard of at that point were doctors and lawyers. And I might have made a decent lawyer, but it didn't, I tell some off-color jokes about that. And so I felt like it wasn't for me. And so I said, you know what, I'll be a doctor. It provides this opportunity to make this impact and have this, support people's lives and kind of help them build a foundation for their health. And they trust you with this intimate relationship. But unfortunately, those are really good reasons to pursue medicine, but they're not the right reasons to pursue medicine.
Not for everyone.
Right?
Right.
And it certainly wasn't enough. And it kind of just hid the fact that I really didn't want to do that so much as I didn't know what to do.
Sure.
And I'm comfortable with my own vulnerability. It was a mistake and one that my own hubris led me, to take way too far. So I got a degree in physiology at Oklahoma State. I'm still an orange bleeding cowboy, and I'm proud of it. And then went to medical school at OU, where it was an utter disaster. It's like one of those things where it's an unfortunate place to have to admit to oneself that you don't want to do it.
Right.
And so I left med school and before completing, I'll put it that way, my 3rd year, and had to, for the first time in my life, really think about what is it that I want, what was it that, those principles that I liked that were good reasons but not the right reasons. Right. What was I trying to achieve, and what other places in the world could I find that and actually it be a good fit?
Sure.
And so, I spent a little bit of time just, doing a manual labor job just to clear my head here in Oklahoma City. And then, and I was very fortunate to have met the girl that would go on to be my wife. And while I was
big
here,
catalyst in putting you on the next level. Right?
Absolutely.
There you go.
I mean, it's the most important investment anyone can make in their life. There's no question. And I strongly suggest that anyone that's listening to this, regardless of where they are, if you want a great marriage, marry an Oklahoma girl.
Absolutely.
They are the best. So or boy for the ladies listeners. So so at that point, I was fortuitously exposed to the world of nonprofit, and I'm something of a sucker for being able to do something good in someone's lives, and so it solved. Nonprofit it offered me a way to do, to achieve that impact and that being a positive factor in my community where I had only seen kind of negative factors in my community.
Sure.
In my youth. And so, it felt like a good fit for a while. And it was. I still love it. I still very much support nonprofits, and am still close with some of those that I worked with. But what I've ended up finding, through also a bit of luck, was that while it was a great way for me to fulfill that impact and fulfill this kind of force for community building and good at scale. It didn't quite scratch my analytical itch enough. And remember, I'm a math kid. I'm a science major.
Right.
And I need a fair amount of kind of analytical rigor to
just need
what
to go
I'm
a little
doing.
deeper.
Yeah. And so, by happenstance, I was offered the opportunity to be a presidential political appointee in Washington D.C. in the end of the Obama administration. And so my wife and I moved to Washington D.C. and did that for a couple of years, and then I was offered the extraordinary opportunity to come and actually, I'll back up a bit. In the Obama administration, I was helping to manage an entity that is mostly unknown, but is effectively a bond fund on behalf of tribes. That meant it's overseeing the financial aspects of the trust relationship that the tribes and the federal government have. That's very complicated.
Yeah.
And that exposed me. While I didn't do any investing in that role, it exposed me to oh my goodness, the capital markets offer this ability for impact. And yes, they offer ability for great destruction and pain, right? Like, and exploitation, but they also offer, they're just a tool that can be used for building or destruction, right, and at scale. And it also offers that analytical aspect that I kind of crave. And so I was very, very fortunate. So I'm a Choctaw. I'm a really proud Choctaw. If it weren't for the tribe, I wouldn't have eaten growing up a lot. I was raised, as it were, by my big old Choctaw granny. That was just the most wonderful person on earth. And I was afforded the amazing opportunity to come close to home, to the DFW area from Washington D.C. and help stand up a private equity sleeve on behalf of my tribe. And that we had great success, and it was an unbelievable experience, and I'm so grateful for it. And it was there, so at that point I had a physiology degree and a smattering of medical school, and I'd never taken an economics class, I'd never taken an accounting class, I'd never taken a direct finance class. I'm passionate, I like to learn things, and I'll teach myself, but that creates big blind spots. And so, I knew, I was managing money on behalf of my tribe, and because it was the tribe that made sure I had enough to eat growing up, I knew the stakes.
Right.
And I said, in order to do this well, I need to seek some additional education. And so I was, again, very fortunate and was able to attend the Yale School of Management and get an MBA, and it was a transformative experience. And at every step of the way, I was so grateful for these very lucky roles that I had been exposed to, at every step of the way. And invariably at every step of the way, there was something that came along that I just couldn't say no to. When my wife and I left Oklahoma City for Washington, D.C., we agreed up front that yes, it may not be a direct route back home, but ultimately we want to it means more to us to do something meaningful at home, right, than it would be to be a part of something maybe established and big somewhere else.
Right.
I always was, we never stayed away too long, and we were always open to opportunities, here in the city. And I had been, running off at the mouth for years, saying that it was preposterous, again, that all my coastal friends didn't think that it was possible to do VC in the center of the country. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortuitously connected to a gentleman, the CEO of I2E, Scott Meacham, via another one of your guests and one of my fellow panelists at OVF, Kevin Moore.
Kevin, right.
And once and I didn't even really know what I2E did, or what was then called IMC High, I2E Management Company, did. And once I got to know Scott a little bit and understand the vision and understand what they had done to establish this foundation, that would allow us to not only invest in companies, but deliver tremendous value to companies, especially at that seed stage, and provide a continuum of capital throughout their journey and support them in ways much beyond the check, all while simultaneously building up comfort with this thesis within the market, within Oklahoma,
right.
Demonstrating internally and to the world at large that this is
and then the ripple effects of economic impact.
Absolutely, right? Like
sure.
so, this not only provides a path to the dreams of these entrepreneurs, but it provides for a much more kind of a much more robust and stable and dynamic economy for the place that I love the most.
Exactly.
Right? And so it was not possible to say no to that.
That's a win-win-win.
Yeah, I felt like if anything, we were in the first inning, and so I was pretty excited to come in and be a part of that, and we quickly decided that what we needed to do was establish a little bit of clarity, and so let's announce to the world that there is this thing that they may not even fully understand or know about, this true kind of venture capital fund manager that will be making that will be delivering superior risk-adjusted returns to its LPs, and will be providing extraordinary economic a catalyst for the state, and a willing partner for entrepreneurs, and a path to doing something really special to people that just want to work in an innovative environment.
Here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Either staying here or attracting them from other places.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so you've started to build a portfolio of companies that you're doing exactly that with.
Absolutely.
And so we talked about Oklahoma, about entrepreneurs, about they say we can't do it here, but you and I know that you can.
Oh, yeah. I have proof.
Exactly. So what's your piece of advice? What's your favorite piece of advice, or what would you like to convey to someone listening to this right now who's an entrepreneur? They're going to build their business in Oklahoma, or it's here now and they're trying to grow it. What's the best piece of advice you can give them on how to be most successful?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not some sort of magician, right? And in fact, part of what attracted me to this role, as I said, was that blue collar, like, we are not here for smoke and mirrors. And there's so much of that occurs globally in venture capital. It is greater fool theory at scale, right? They're betting that they can, build enough enthusiasm for something before everyone realizes that there's no value creation there. Right. And so, it's not within me to participate in that, and it's not what will work in Oklahoma. And so what we've done, what this company has done throughout its history, and what we will continue to do into the future, and what I think a lot of venture capitalists and entrepreneurs that are hitched to them are learning the hard way with the current kind of market turmoil, is that if there is no fundamental value creation thesis, right, it will, you are just at the whims of macro factors that could cut you off at the knees.
Right.
And so, for the founders in Oklahoma and beyond, that believe that they have an idea that can create value, that they want to do that hard work, right? That they want to, that they want to put in the extra effort to being able to build something real, impactful, and sustainable at a scale that can scale,
right?
And they want to work alongside us to do it. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to meet you.
It's hard work, but it's absolutely doable.
Absolutely.
And the tools are in place.
Absolutely.
You just have to be open to the process, reach out, be involved in the community, be part of the venture capital.
Absolutely.
All of these things come together to ultimately create the right opportunity for someone who's willing to work for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. We are not going to be a good destination for someone that is looking to do something with smoke and mirrors, right?
Right.
We want to, my goal is to create a process that people know coming in. They know exactly how to demonstrate their value, their idea, in a way that communicates its value, that we can get there quickly, right? Like, that's my goal. Right now, I'm liable to fail in so many ways. I fall short of that ideal, but that's what I'm working towards, right? Is a way for those who are that they have that discipline, and oh my God, we have them coming out of the woodwork.
Right.
There's a heavy supply in Oklahoma of founders that are willing to do that work.
Yes.
If anything, I have to encourage a lot of them, guys, we need to be able to paint a grand vision. You have a grand vision. You're delivering something unbelievable here that has world-changing effects. Let's not be shy about saying how big it's going to be, right? Like, let's just also paint a very real picture of exactly what it's going to take to get us there.
Thank you, Justin, so much for having this conversation with me today on the podcast, giving me a completely different perspective to venture capital, to funding, to the ways that ideas become real companies that become sustainable businesses right here in Oklahoma. Thank you for participating at the Oklahoma Venture Forum as well, and continuing to help all of us educate ourselves, each other, and everyone in the economic and entrepreneurial community of Oklahoma that we absolutely can do it here, that you don't have to go to the coast to be successful.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.